good to have you around the brew house again, Roger. You can have a quick look at mash tun too.
Okay, lovely old vessels, aren't they?
This is one we did a few hours ago.
What a wonderful old copper, beautiful vessel. John, people often say or think that making beer is very simple compared to wine, but brewing is actually a very complex process, isn't it?
It is indeed, and a lot of that work, that hard work and complexity started in the maltings. The maltster has taken the barley and created malt by modifying some of the starch that's in the barley and making it into fermentable sugars. All I've now done is I've milled that malt and mixed it with water, activated the natural malt enzymes, which are now continuing that malting process, if you like, and chopping up any residual starch into small fermentable sugars.
That is a magical natural process, isn't it? I mean, inside there, untouched by you, natural little time bombs called enzymes are converting starch into sugar.
Indeed, indeed, and we'll actually measure the amount of starch at the end, and in theory there should be none, and therefore I know that all the sugar has been converted and I'm ready to then extract it. And what's going on in here at the moment is there is an extraction process and we're draining sugars out into the copper to be boiled with the hops at a later stage.
Now we mustn't forget water, because even the strongest beer is 90% water. How important is water to your process?
Water's paramount, absolutely paramount. We use our own water. We've got 3 artesian wells coming through chalk beds, so our resultant water is quite hard, but that does add to the final flavour of the beer and gives it a little bit of bite and a little bit of dryness, but obviously is perfect for getting those enzymes to do the work in this mash tun.
And how much malt is there actually inside the mash tun?
In this particular mash tun, there's 10 tons of malt and about 20 something tons of water, to put it in perspective. And a general rule of thumb for most brewers is that a ton of malt will make 40 to 50 barrels of beer at 4% alcohol.
And how long does the mashing process last in there, John?
The whole process in this vessel is a mere 8 hours. Right, I thought we'd have a look at some of the ingredients, and I wanted to start with pale ale malt. This is a spring barley called tipple. It's been made into malt, and it's the blank canvas that all beers share, which is then overlaid with other malts. So if we could start by you tasting one of those, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, even the darkest beer is primarily made with pale malt, isn't it?
Indeed.
Yeah.
You get a nice sort of sweet, muesli flavour coming out there.
Oh, it is. As you bite into it, you get this sweetness coming out.
Taste the flour.
That is delicious. Yeah, that is breakfast cereal.
It is. Proper brewer's breakfast.
Beautiful. And this is grown very near the brewery?
This is grown locally in East Anglia and is obviously local to the brewery.
God, that is so good.
Second one I thought we'd look at is crystal malt. As you can see, it's a little bit darker. It's been partially roasted. Should find it a little bit drier, crunchier, very toasted flavours in there.
I'm getting little hints of sort of caramel, vanilla. That's equally delicious. This is very much a muesli mix, as you say.
It is indeed,
Yeah.
it is. Almost a little bit of bonfire toffee in there.
Yes, yeah.
And here, this is black malt, and this has been roasted, fully roasted, and you'll probably have quite an experience with chewing this one. It's black, it's burnt, roast,
Oh,
bitter.
that is quite acrid, isn't it?
Yeah, it's almost like coffee.
It is. It's like chewing a coffee bean.
Yeah. But that adds flavour and colour.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful malt.
So that's interesting, John. So some of the bitterness in beer comes not just from the hops, but it can come from the.
It can do, and it's about it's about how your tongue and your flavour senses pick these things up. Yeah. And I thought while we were here, we'd have a quick look at some hops. And here's a sample that was probably harvested 6 weeks ago in Kent. It's a variety called Bramling Cross. This is a sample that's been cut from a pocket or a bale, and as you can see, it's got a nice spring to it It's breaking down a little bit, and here we have some cones, and inside the cone is that nice yellow powder in the glands, which yield the oil and the bitterness potential. And if we give a few of these a bit of a rub, you should get a very nice sort of ribose black currant flavour, or black currant nose, that is coming from this particular variety.
Oh,
it's quite an old variety.
That's gorgeous.
You
Yes.
can see my hands now very, very greasy, and that's the oil, that's the aromatic oils that now come out.
Yeah. And sort of, old books, leather, even, dare I say, a touch of pipe tobacco.
Well, I've never tried smoking this, but I'll take your lead on it. Excellent. So where we're going now is to have a look at the copper, where the wort from Mashton 2 was running to earlier that we saw.
Yeah.
And hopefully... Right, so here we have copper 2, where Mashton 2 has just run into. It'll be on boil very shortly, and we'll also be adding the hops at this point. Obviously, as we're boiling hops, we'll be creating the bitterness, we'll be creating some of the aroma associated with the final product, and of course as we're boiling sugar, then we're developing flavour, we're developing aroma again, and also colour, and of course we're sterilising the wort so that when we cool it and add the yeast, there's only the yeast there actively fermenting.
Yeah, I look upon hops as the salt and pepper of the brewing process. Most people know that hops give bitterness to beer, but they give far more than that. There's wonderful piney, cedary, citrusy aromas, don't they?
Indeed, and that's coming from the aromatic oils that we saw earlier in the Bramling Cross. And obviously what the brewer can do is add more hops either later on in the boil or at the next stage to give even more intense aroma. So it's a way of balancing the aroma with the bitterness.
I love the expression angel's share, because when you're boiling in there, a lot of the aroma is evaporated, so you put more hops in to replace that loss.
Indeed.
But what goes up in the air is called, that's for the angels.
Indeed, and the late hopping, if you like, augments the loss.
Now, during the course of a year, you're brewing so many beers here. How many different hops would you use?
Probably about 20. Most of those are true English hops from Hereford, Worcester, and of course Kent. And a small amount of New World hops, like Cascade, Centennial, Willamette, Galaxy, and a small number from Europe as well.
Yeah. So what do New World hops give to beer that English hops can't?
Well, they obviously still give bitterness, but they do tend to have a more amplified aroma, particularly their oil fractions do yield really heavy, citrus, zesty flavours and that. And as such, that is found in the end product.
Yeah. But this is where you finish the mash by testing your product. John, here we are in the fermentation room. These lovely vessels. How many of these rooms do you have?
Well, this is one of 4, probably the oldest, and this particular room has the older squares in here. This is one of the smaller ones, but they're all in use, and we'll ferment beer for anything up to a week, so we'll end up with green beer in here after a week, having seeded the wort that we saw earlier with yeast.
And don't brewers talk about 2 Sabbaths in the fermentation vessel?
Indeed they do, yes. Certainly for the stronger beers.
Now, as you're brewing quite a lot of different beers here, do you have more than one yeast culture?
I use 3 yeast strains. Obviously, we have our main yeast strain and then 2 for some of our seasonals and that. Yeah. So what we have here, Roger, is the oak vats. This is a 100-barrel oak vat, inside of which is a 12% ABV vintage ale, which is also protected by the Suffolk marl that's sitting on top here, which came from a quarry just a few miles away, but it acts as a breathable barrier to keep any bits and pieces out of the vessel whilst it matures. And it'll sit in here for the best part of 2 years. Oh.
This is one of my most favourite places in the entire world of brewing, because this is something historic. This is the way beer used to be brewed back in the 18th century, when country brewers made beers which were blended, that you'd make this very strong beer in an oak vat, then you blend it with a slightly weaker beer to bring down the overall strength. So it was an old beer being brewed with a young, fresh beer. So this really is history.
And that's exactly what we do with this. 2 years later, we'll blend it with a slightly strong beer, but it's not as strong as 12%. It's 6% BPA, and we create Strong Suffolk, which I think we ought to try. So here we are then, Roger. This is Strong Suffolk, which contains a proportion of our 5X. Well, very good health. Perhaps you'd like to tell me what you think of this.
It's really the malt whisky of the brewing world, isn't it? Because this has been matured for so long in wood, allowing it to develop all these amazing, and that is, if you gave this to somebody blindfold, they might say it's a slightly bitter version of port wine.
It almost has a slightly sour sherry character.
And in spite of putting the marl on top of the vessel, you still get some activity in there which makes it slightly sour.
Indeed, and that's what gives us its character.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of treacle, licorice in there, almost like black treacle.
Yeah.
A little bit of molasses.
Yeah. There is licorice, molasses. It's very creamy though.
Creamy, and perhaps brandy-soaked raisins, I always like to think.
Raisins and sultanas. There's just about everything you can think of.
And that's just on the nose.
That's right, but before we taste it. Oh. And then the hops kick in. You're getting a bit of hop. It's not meant to be very, very bitter, but there's some hop activity in the mouth. But again, that lovely, creamy, fruity sultana, raisin, licorice, molasses.
There's a lot of body still in there as well. You know, there's a lot of complex sugars still loitering behind to give you that that mouthfeel.
Yeah. And of course, you can see where Marmite comes from as well, can't you?
Indeed.
And then the finish on the back of the tongue, down the throat. Sweet, but not a cloying sweetness, a very clean, considering how strong it is, it's a very clean sweetness, but balanced by the hops, balanced by that lovely burnt dark fruit character. That is amazing, and that is history in the glass.
Excellent. Well, I'll tell you what, shall we go and taste some more beers? Excellent. Okay, Roger, I have a great range of ales for you, and I'd like you to start with a mild.
A good place to start. This is a beer style that's coming back into vogue and popularity. It used to be the major beer style in this country. Lovely sort of dark ruby red going on brown. And of course, a lot of the dark malts we spoke about earlier will go into this beer.
Almost a smoky character.
It is smoky, yeah.
Only 3%
Yeah,
ABV.
yeah, but lots of aroma in
Not strong, but strong in flavour.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Oh, that's lovely. Lots of really dark, chewy malt, fruity in a nice, gentle way. Not a lot of hop, but then mild beers aren't supposed to be particularly bitter or hoppy, are they?
Lightly hopped, very lightly hopped. And I think we'll go straight on to Old Speckled Hen, of course.
Very, very popular beer.
And absolutely rammed with the crystal malt that we looked at this morning.
Yeah. Almost red in colour, isn't it? You can get that toffee butterscotch character from that crystal malt.
There's no late hop in here, so all that flavour is coming from those malts.
Yeah. But there is some nice hop resin though. I can get some hop on the tongue.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah. And not a sweet finish at all. It's a nice juicy malt, nice bit of hop and that toffee butterscotch note. Very refreshing actually.
And quite a dry linger.
Yeah.
So here's another excellent beer. This is Ruby Red, and I'm hoping, Roger, you can tell me all about this.
Yeah, this comes from a friendly neighbourhood brewery of yours in Suffolk, St Peter's Brewery. John, this is a most intriguing recipe because they're using Munich malt and rye crystal. Now, what are they?
Well, Munich malt is probably more intense than some standard malts and a little bit darker and adds to the overall flavour. And the rye crystal, as the name suggests, is a crystal malt made from rye, but obviously helps to give it colour, but also gives it a dryness.
And you can get that rye on the nose. It's very much like sort of that lovely Polish rye bread you can get these days. It's very powerful bready aroma, but nice hop too. And they're using a very new English hop called Boa de Sia.
I know Boa de Sia well.
Yeah.
It's a very, very good, very good hop.
Yeah. Deep, deep red colour. This is more like a famous Irish red ale than an English ale, isn't it? It's got a very pungent rye bread nose. It's like that lovely rye Polish bread you can get in supermarkets these days. But there's a nice hop as well. Modern English hop, Boa de Sia. Lots of hop resins on the nose of the beer.
Quite a nice dry finish as well, which is, again, coming from the rye.
That's right.
But Roger, this is one of my personal favourites. This is Aberdale.
Yeah. This is a redoubtable ale, I think you'd say.
This is a true brewer's beer.
Yeah.
And I often say you are being spoken to currently by an Aberdale container. 5% ABV, premium strength. It's a nice mahogany, rich amber colour. Roasted, ripe fruit on the nose. You get almost a little bit of fruit cake. Tempered with the Fuggle hop to give a nice spicy
that's right.
balance. And a little bit of amber malt in here to give it sort of a maltiness, almost a biscuit character.
Yeah, this really is a classic strong English ale, and it's got a sort of almost Dundee cake note on the nose. It's very, very rich, but as you say, that lovely spicy Fuggle hop, very distinct,
full on the palate.
Yeah,
but also quite bitter, but not perceivably bitter. Get a nice bittersweet finish.
That is, as you say, very, very full in the mouth. Lots and lots of malt, but again, that brilliant balance of maltiness and hoppiness. Fruitiness, which we discussed about fermentation, so there's rich fruit, but not overpowering. And a nice bittersweet finish to start with, a bit of sort of vanilla, that Dundee cake note again, fruity, but it ends dry with a good Fuggle spicy hop note.
And as we said earlier, definitely blessed by the Sabbath. So here, Roger, we have a wonderful cask stout, Blackadder. What can you tell me about that?
Well, this back in the 90s was champion beer of Britain. Very,
Really?
very, yes. Malden's another friend of yours in Suffolk. And although it's called Blackadder, it is actually a stout. And it's an English stout, which is quite different to an Irish stout. And they're using black malt in this one, and just one English hop, the Challenger. Now, you as the brewer would know you don't need to use too much black malt to get that colour, do you?
Indeed, no. And it's quite an intense, very intense blackness.
It's got a beautiful aroma. It's so different to the previous beers. It's sort of licorice and molasses. Caramel. Christmas cake. That's beautiful.
But not too heavy.
Not too heavy.
Despite it being 5.3%, it's quite easy drinking.
Very smooth, creamy malt in the mouth. You don't get that intense roasty character you get from an Irish stout. It's much more creamy and smooth. There's a nice underlying bitterness, and that will come, I suspect, from the dark malt as well as from the hops.
I would think so.
Yeah.
No, an example of a perfect English stout. So here, Roger, we've got IPA Reserve, 5.4%. Again, a premium amber ale.
Now, this is a new beer of yours, isn't it, John? This is the kind of strength of the IPAs brewed in the 19th century when the beer was exported to India.
It's certainly getting close to it. Perhaps not as bitter as it would have been in the 1820s. Certainly a little bit less than that, the palate, to meet the modern palate, but it's still got a bitter kick to it.
Yeah. But my word, that is fruity. I mean,
very fruity.
Wow. That is just about every citrusy and tropical fruit you can think of. Lemons, I'm getting lots of lemon on the nose of that beer.
I'm also getting pepper, strangely enough.
Yes. What are the hops in this one?
Oh, this is Styrian Golding.
And
quite spicy as well.
Yes, it is very peppery. You're quite right, it's very peppery.
Mouth coating, but dry.
It is very dry in the mouth. That continuing rich fruitiness, lovely spicy hop.
But it's still easy drinking.
Easy drinking and very refreshing. And of course, these beers were formulated for people in India in that torrid climate who wanted something very refreshing.
An excellent single malt.
It's a lovely, long, slow, bittersweet finish and then ends dry and that peppery hop note again.
Yeah, one of my favourites, most definitely.
That is fantastic.
Okay, Roger, here's the finale. A classic bottle conditioned hen's tooth. A little bit stronger than the rest, 6.5%.
Yeah.
As you can see, I'm pouring it at eye line. I'm looking for the sediment to start to arrive. Here it comes into the neck of the bottle. So I'm going to hand you that as nice, bright, premium beer.
Thank you so
much. And then for me, I'm going to give this a nice swirl, re-sediment the yeast, and cheers.
You're a brave man. That'll keep you lively, John.
Absolutely, the best vitamin tablet you can have.
I mean, what is fascinating about the entire bottled beer sector, John, is it was falling off a cliff 20 years ago, but now packaged beer is very, very popular again. Lots and lots of fantastic bottled beers, and within the overall bottled beer sector, you get bottled conditioned beers with live yeast. Now, how long will this beer go on improving in bottle, because it does have the yeast in there?
Well, I think it's quite subjective in the sense that some people obviously believe beer should be fresh. From my perspective, I've drunk this particular beer at 2 years old and it's been very good. There is a mindset that says it does improve with age, and no reason why it wouldn't.
Now, you can tell this comes from the old Speckled Hen's stable, can't you? Because,
Indeed.
yeah.
I mean, there's no late hop on that.
No.
A much stronger version than say Old Speckled Hen.
Yes.
But obviously with that extra little bit of oomph from the bottled conditioning.
This is more of a rooster than a hen, isn't it?
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah. That's so incredible. Lots and lots of caramel and vanilla, which will come from that crystal malt, which we discussed earlier. Nice spicy hop note.
And very warming on the palate.
Yes, you can get that lovely warming, it's that almost whiskey warmth in the chest from this beer. 6.5%, there's a lot of alcohol in there. Finish, again, so beautifully balanced. There's some bittersweetness, lots of caramel, toffee, vanilla, spicy hop. Really very rich and complex. What we've seen today is the tremendous skill that goes into brewing good beer and equally tremendous choice and diversity available to the British drinker. We've had beers that range from dark through ruby red, through jet black stouts, up to a very strong ale like Hen's Tooth. And what it proves is that there's so much for people to enjoy. But if you want to enjoy these beers at their peak, then please go to the British pub and support the British pub. And if you support the British pub, then you'll support good traditional British ale.